Hi, Professor Wainaina here, your 5 minutes teacher on education, childhood, youth, parenting, and all things school. Welcome. Most of us recoil naturally from the word failure. Instinctively, we've been conditioned to fear failure, to associate it with shame, incompetence, and inadequacy. The source of this deep-seated fear of failure is school. From the earliest days of nursery school, we were introduced to failure not as a tool for learning, but as a mark of disgrace and shame. Failure and its daughters, disgrace and shame, were ingrained in our psyche through years of being graded, ranked, and corrected. Sadly, after school is done with us, we spend the rest of our lives frozen in what if I fail and what will people say. The problem begins with how school frames failure. In academic settings, success is often presented as a binary. You either pass or fail, succeed or fall short. This is most clearly reflected in the grading system, where a wrong answer leads to a red mark on the paper, a drop in the overall score, and ultimately a negative judgment on our abilities. In schools, failure functions as punishment designed to deter poor performance. Over time, we internalize the lesson that failure is something to be avoided at all costs because it signifies fundamental lack of ability and it leads to shame. This stigma of failure is reinforced by peer pressure. Children are acutely aware of their social standing, and school environments thrive on comparison. Being labeled as a failure is not just an academic issue, but a social one. Research shows that children and adolescents are highly sensitive to social evaluation, and failing in a public institutional setting where classmates can see who gets the lowest score becomes a source of humiliation. This creates an anxiety-driven aversion to failure that extends far beyond individual tests or assignments. It seeps into how we perceive ourselves, shaping our self-worth and confidence. This leads to a harmful form of avoidance. Instead of embracing challenges that could lead to growth, we begin to limit ourselves to tasks we know we can accomplish. The result is that we are extremely averse to starting anything new and paralyzingly afraid of failure. Think back. How many times have you thought about doing something and then dropped it because of the thought, what if I fail and what will people say? Fear of failure makes us passive, disengaged, and worst of all, we stop trying. The school system's punitive framing of failure has created a feedback loop where fear breeds inaction and inaction cements the very failure we are trying to avoid. In schools, we are taught that failure defines us. A failed exam at whatever level isn't just a failure of that exam in that moment, it becomes evidence of our permanent limitations. This mindset, pervasive in our education system, locks us into a fear of failure because it frames failure not as a temporary setback, but as a definitive statement about who we are. If I fail, I'm a failure. This framing matters so much because the lessons we learn in school about failure shape our attitudes for life. Our fear of failure becomes ingrained in how we approach work, how we approach relationships, and personal goals. It paralyzes us from taking risks, from pushing beyond our comfort zones, and from pursuing paths that might not guarantee success but could lead to immense growth. The aversion to failure that schools cultivate makes us risk averse even in adulthood. We choose stability over innovation, the known over the unknown, tradition over disruption, comfort over challenge, certainty over ambiguity. And in doing so, we kill our potential. If you forget everything else, remember this: the fear of failure is not natural, it is learned in school. To engage differently, you have to start to unlie the lie that if you fail, you are a failure. Failure and fear of failure are illusions built by a broken school system. Life, unlike school, is not a pass or fail test. The reality is much more complicated and nuanced. And if we continue to let our schooling dictate how we live, we will be crippled by fear of failure. We will be no better than caged birds who, conditioned by the walls of their cages, forget that they were meant to fly. Thank you for your time. See you in the next lesson.